So it's been 3 years since the pandemic upended all our lives. What have we learned in these last 3 years? It's also an important year for India, India's G20 presidency. How does India shape the emerging global order, as it were? To talk about this and a lot more issues, we have one of the finest thinkers and the co-chair of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, founder of Microsoft. Thank you very much, Mr. Bill Gates, for speaking with us here on CNN News 18.
Great to talk to you.
All right, let's start with the pandemic. It's been 3 years. It's your first trip here to India since the pandemic broke out. What have been the biggest learnings, according to you, in the way the world dealt with this once-in-a-lifetime event?
Well, I and others spoke out about this risk in advance, and sadly the world in general didn't do much to get ready. And so, it did go global. We had over 20 million deaths. We're still going to be making up for the deaths and educational loss for a long time to come. So the only good news is that we will take the lessons and be better prepared.
What are those lessons?
Well, there are things that India is actually an exemplar on. It scaled up diagnostics very quickly. It scaled up vaccine production. Our foundation has a close relationship with the vaccine manufacturers, so we were able to help them move at very high speed along with the Indian government. And so we're going to have more standby capacity in the future for diagnostics, for therapeutics, and for vaccines, so that we can get that coverage a lot faster. Also, the surveillance, being able to see early what's going on, that wasn't very strong. And so this idea, can you look in the sewage? Well, that was done during COVID.
Yeah.
And it turns out you could see a lot of things there. So what we call environmental surveillance, that'll be part of the investment in doing better next time.
So you are confident that should another pandemic, God forbid, hit humanity, we are better prepared, not just in how we respond, but also better prepared to detect?
Yes, and if you can contain it before it goes around the globe, the benefits are really phenomenal. So I think that we will do a lot better next time.
So to that extent, I'm just curious to know, are you interested in knowing how important is it to know about the origins of this? Because I'm asking this in the context of the recent report you must have read in the Wall Street Journal about how the U.S. Department of Energy believes there is material to suggest that this was a lab leak. I'm just curious to know, will we ever get to know what actually led to this once-in-a-lifetime pandemic?
No. I doubt we'll ever have any certainty. I think it was a naturally transmitted occurrence. But we have to protect ourselves to make sure our labs are safe, and we have to be tracking the animal reservoirs. Flu always comes across through birds or pigs, and India has a One Health initiative, which is about integrating the animal health with the human health and doing a lot of this increased surveillance, which is a great example, the type of thing I'd like to see all countries do.
Why has the world not been able to detect? We've seen animal-to-human transfer on a number of occasions, particularly increasingly so in the last 10, 15 years or so, from H1N1 all the way up to the pandemic, COVID-19. Is the science lacking? Is human sort of alertness lacking? Why are we not able to detect it?
Well, HIV, most diseases that are ongoing actually did come across the species barrier. Rabies on a regular basis is a tragic disease. Ebola, we had a big outbreak of that in Africa.
Yeah.
So it's hard, and I'm impressed now that you can go and look in the slaughterhouse, go and look in the wild. It's these sequencing techniques amazingly can see this stuff. My first exposure to that was through polio, where we could actually see it. It's our best tool. It helped us get polio to zero here in India, and it's why we think we can get global eradication of polio, where we're down to just 2 countries, Afghanistan and Pakistan, that still have the wild disease.
I want to talk a little bit about technology for the betterment of humankind, and you've talked about ChatGPT a lot. Have you tried it? Are you excited about it? How do you imagine this changing our lives?
Yeah, the leadership at Microsoft, Satya Nadella and OpenAI, have engaged me in looking at, okay, how do we take advantage of this? Through my foundation work, looking at, okay, how do health systems use this? And how do education systems use this for things like a personal tutor? So I'm actually quite enthused. Yes, I'm getting to see the latest versions. And
what do you think of it? Have you?
It's amazing. I mean, it sometimes will surprise you that it doesn't get it right, but a lot of times in its fluency of writing, AIs up until now, they could do a lot of great stuff. They could recognize photos and speech, but they couldn't read and they couldn't write. And so that's what this GPT-3, GPT-4, now computers in a surprisingly good way, most of the time, are able to read and write. And many people didn't think that would happen. In the fall when I was playing around with it, I was saying, wow, this is a very, very valuable tool.
Are you worried, though, that there could be ethical dimensions to it which are worrisome? I mean, universities, for example, are suddenly rethinking this whole idea of having theses and dissertations for students because they could just ask ChatGPT to fill it up for them.
Well, it's the same dilemma we had when calculators came along.
Right.
Should we teach people to multiply? And, if we give them arithmetic homework, are they sitting there just using their calculator? And so we'll have to adjust. I'd say there is definitely some good news here because most people who write an essay, your teacher doesn't have that much time to comment on areas where it could be better. One of the things that the AI is good at is taking a paper and giving you a lot of suggestions. And I do think it's still important for people to learn how to write themselves, just like I feel about mathematics.
So is it going to eat up jobs? Because that seems to be the big concern that a lot of people have, that coders will be out of fashion. I mean, if somebody said this to you 30 years ago, you'd have been like, hell what?
Well, there's many jobs where making people more productive, you just apply that to higher quality or more output. So in the healthcare sector, we have so much in the way of unmet needs. In the education sector, what if we could take class size from 40, 30, 20, 10? What if the tutor could help adjust to the level, particularly of the students who are behind? And so the only thing that's unusual here is that the innovation it could be adapted very rapidly.
Yeah.
In the agricultural sector, we eliminated 90% of the jobs, but we did it over several generations. So yes, the policies, because when do we trust these things, when do we not? A lot of work to do there. What is the adjustment in the labor market? Governments need to get engaged because there'll be a lot of policy questions.
Let's talk about, you've come back to India at an interesting time. It's the year of India's G20 presidency. Even as we speak, this week there is the G20 foreign ministers meeting. You'll be speaking on an event on the sidelines of it. What are your expectations at a time when we're seeing a lot of flux around the world?
Well, the G20 will address a lot of issues. The dislocations from the war in Ukraine, where food prices, fertilizer prices have gone up, deserve a lot of visibility. And the aid to some of the countries in Africa is going to go down while this war is going on, which is very unfortunate. The great thing about India leading this is that it has many examples. The digitization of the health system, the digitization of the finance system, this focus on foundational learning. And I've wanted other countries to see these advances in India, and this forum is very well timed, particularly the identity and financial systems. We're seeing countries that come here say, okay, please India, give us some technical assistance, and then the Gates Foundation can come in with money and other experts so that we can get adoption in dozens of additional countries. The benefits distribution that's now done digitally is way more efficient, way more targeted, and so every country should have that, and India's willing to help and share its innovation.
Is there any particular digital made in India product or app or anything that's impressed you?
Well, the basic identity system is so important because it's not like one department of the government used one identity system, another used another. And what they did is so well defined in terms of how you make sure you're protecting privacy. So Aadhaar is at the bottom of this, but then the payment system put on top of that. Now when we want to pay the private sector for helping out with tuberculosis in India, it's so efficient because it uses that system. It wouldn't work without that. Even, ASHA workers, when they do certain things, making sure they get paid really quickly. And so the applications are where you get the benefit, but some great design work was done, and it's one system that almost all citizens are connected to.
I'm coming back to the Russia-Ukraine war and obviously the consequences of it, as you outlined. There's food inflation, there's product inflation. What may this mean for companies, particularly technology companies who are talking about a China plus one strategy? Can India be that plus one?
Well, India's, as a manufacturing base, there is a lot of interest in doing manufacturing in India. Historically, issues around land and labor regulations made it not that attractive. So it will be fascinating to see. I believe it's a great thing for the world and a great thing for India if it's a attractive alternative as a manufacturing base. I'm a huge believer in free trade. I don't think, I think having India, China, and the U.S. all three get along with each other is the best thing for humanity. And India's stepping up to a bigger role there.
But you don't see this war, or even otherwise, even before that with Donald Trump and stuff, a sort of a backlash to free trade and a backlash to globalization? Oh,
there's definitely a backlash. I hope we preserve the things that have been fantastic about it. The IT jobs here in India are huge favor to the country, huge favor to the world. And I would hate to see trade policies that said, no, you can't access the incredible talent here.
Last couple of questions. I know you love chatgpt, but is there any other technology product you're excited about that you've seen in the last couple of years, which you think is really something that we should be talking about, something that the world should be talking about?
People talk about crypto, and I'm very negative. I don't see that as beneficial at all. They talk about the metaverse, and I do think that'll be valuable, but not so revolutionary. Mm-hmm. AI broadly is the big change agent, and we're just realizing that when you can use natural language, like if you want to make a drawing, you just say put a barn here, make it bigger. In the past, the way we connect to computers is through menus and very specialized things. So having natural language is going to unlock the ability to navigate digital data. That is very much at the top of my list. The fact that the connectivity, India's got great mobile phone connectivity now, a lot of money going into the 5G, which means that video, both educational video or just entertainment video, is going to be pervasive in a gigantic way. So we always need the infrastructure, but on top of that, AI-driven applications is the biggest change agent.
Of course, there's one big change, which is Elon Musk taking over Twitter, and I'm wondering what you think of that, the change that's happened on Twitter.
Elon's done such a great job at SpaceX and Tesla, and I'd say the jury's out on will he be glad he went there, will the world be glad he went there. The whole issue of the craziness in these digital channels, not just Twitter, but all of them, is a tough problem. You know, instead of us all being sort of more factual and educated, in some ways people are withdrawing into groups where they all, you know, share non-factual beliefs. And, you know, I challenge the younger generation. This is one of the problems they're going to have to deal with, and I hope they can solve it, because it's a little bit scary of what that does to politics.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Bill Gates. We'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.